Good evening, members, and anyone that is online with us. You're very welcome to our meeting here in the Grange. And first of all, can I take any apologies? If there is any. Debbie?
Councillor Brough is not going to be with us tonight, and Chair, I'm actually in a hotel that doesn't have an excellent signal, so can I get permission to turn my camera off so I can hear everything?
Okay, Debbie. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, no further apologies then.
Yes.
Thank you. Oh, sorry, Shirley.
Councillor Mahan may join later, but he may not. So
Okay.
I've done an apology at the moment, okay?
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, and the minutes of the 12th of November have been signed, both full minutes and the confidential. Have we any matters as declarations of interest? No, no indications. Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're going to move on then to reports for decision and to consider a report on the recent visit to Wangshuo.
Thank you very much, Chair. So members, included within the report is a summary of our itinerary the visit took place from the 19th to the 25th of October, and the council represented by the Chair, Vice Chair and myself. I've listed at paragraph 2.4 the various groupings and individuals with whom we had formal meetings, and there were also then cultural visits and exchanges both to a section of the Great Wall and also Hubei Provincial Museum. The purpose of the meeting was, or the visit rather, was really to further enhance our Friendship City agreement and was in response to an invitation from Wangshuo, which was conveyed to the council during their delegation's visit to us last year. And in paragraph 2.6 of the report, Chair, I've just reiterated the core themes and considerations, which are people-to-people engagement, tourism, economic development and the green economy, and educational and cultural exchanges. There was some suggestion in the course of the meetings that with the general progress that we are making, and I suppose of the status of good relationships between both areas, it may in due course be appropriate to move towards what's known as a sister city agreement, which is really a more senior level of cooperation and involves different levels of the regional and also sub-regional administrations in China. But it was suggested that in the first instance, we should continue to work on the development of the current relationship. So in that context, Chair, it's proposed that we would now extend a formal invitation to the Huangshe municipal government to undertake a return visit to Fermanagh and Omagh next year. And pending consideration of this, we would work across each of the themes with a view to a programme of formal activities and engagements at a council level. And we'd also be proposing that we issue formal letters of thanks to each of the organisations with whom we met. And just probably to note, Chair, formally for the record, the Executive Office, the NI Bureau in China, Northern Ireland Bureau in China, their team was really of great assistance to us both in advance of the visit, and their director, Kerry Curran, and officers accompanied us throughout. So the recommendations then, Chair, at section 8, and happy to deal with any queries.
Okay, thanks, Alison. And Seamus?
Yeah, I'd be happy to propose the recommendations, and I think it's essential that we keep up these links with China. I think it was a great initiative by the council, and so I'm happy to propose.
Okay, thanks, Seamus. And Barry?
Thank you, Chair. So I requested speaking rights, as you know, Chair, and thanks for that indulgence. It's a facility within the council now that more of us can use. You know, if you're not on a particular committee, it's a good idea to seek speaking rights if you've got something to refer to specifically. So obviously, myself, Alison as Chief Executive, and Shirley as Vice Chair, we were the delegation who travelled. And I just want to support Alison in the presentation of her report. It was very busy and very productive. I have the actual itinerary in my right hand now. And I would like to thank the Tyrone Herald newspaper for the way they reported this trip. You know, prior to the trip, they made an inquiry of me about going out. And I said, well, let's be responsible. Let's be positive if you can. Come and meet me and get the detail. So they did. They got the detail prior to the visit. You know, the busyness of the itinerary, the nature of the so I want to record my appreciation there for the way that was reported in the Tyrone Herald. So business was at the heart of business and trade, you know, visiting factories and coming away with knowledge, like I mean actual knowledge as to what sectors our local companies might consider exporting to in a targeted way. You know, some inside agri-food, for example, where the opportunities lie. So we found out a good bit of stuff around that. Then the cultural visits and the educational exchange and the tourism bit. There's a phrase that is in Alison's report, people-to-people engagement. That's very important. And the Chinese people and authorities use that phrase a lot, people-to-people. And they say things like friendship and cooperation, let us go forward in friendship and cooperation. So I think that the Bureau, the Executive Office Bureau in Beijing was very helpful to us, as has been said. The director and her colleagues, they were very, very helpful. And so too was a young man from County Down that joined with us for a day or two. He teaches in the university in Huangshe, and he has 10 years experience of living there. He teaches there, and he was generally a good source of support to us for a couple of days in an informal way. But Kerry Curran, the director of the Bureau, and her team were excellent. And as Alison has said there, do we move from friendly to sister, you know, sooner rather than later, or do we build up a bit more on the friendly city side of things? And just by way of follow-up, and this will mean a lot to you, Chairman, is a week later at St. Kevin's College in Lisnaskea, I and you, we met with people that I had met with in China the previous week. So that was real evidence of the exchange. You know, the educational authorities in Guangzhou had come to listen to ski to St. Kevin's College. So it was like reuniting with old friends, even though there were only a gap of a week. And finally then, if we say to ourselves as a council that China does feature in our economic development and outward looking strategy, well, then that means you devote some time to it. You devote some energy and you devote some effort. Otherwise, it's only lip service till the strategy. And that's why a number of councillors and officials of the council will have gained further benefit from a China Economic Trade and Investment Cooperation Forum, which took place recently at the Culloden Estate and was kind of hosted by Mr. Lee, the consul, and he had the ambassador present. And again, I have the itinerary here, all the key contacts that spoke that day, helping local companies to identify gaps in the market where they might make some future impact. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Barry. And before I bring Mark in, just to follow up from your example of how people-to-people continued engagement is important. And today we, as a follow-on from the visit out to China a couple of years ago, and indeed the visit that you reference in St. Kevin's a few weeks ago, the arrangements have been made to bring 15 students out to China at the end of this year and to further build on that relationship building exercise that will hopefully in time pay the dividends then for both parties to be able to gain from it. So it's as you say, Chair, it is a continuous building process and one we are engaged in. Mark?
Thank you very much, Chair. And thanks, Barry, for that further update. I mean, I find that quite useful. I mean, Chair, I've always tried to keep a pretty open mind to this visit. You know, I was asked to comment at the time whenever it was announced a little while, a couple of months ago. I didn't. You know, I wanted to give it fair wind to see how the council got on. And to be completely honest, I wasn't really sure what to expect from this report, but the report we've got tonight isn't really it either. I mean, 5,500 or 5,400 was spent. Yeah, the outcomes are still up, pretty vague. You know, I appreciate the fact that we had conversations and perhaps this is the start of opening a relationship. You know, there's an awful lot of language about reaffirming relationships that have already, from my understanding, have already existed for many years within the council. And if this report is the very best that this council can point to in terms of actual tangible outcomes from the visit, then I'm not entirely convinced really that the council did actually get, or ratepayers really got value for money. And then, I mean, there are big issues. I appreciate some of the issues came after the trip happened, or maybe even during the time colleagues were on the trip, but big issues came to light. Fermanagh and Omagh Council wasn't shown in a particularly positive light, I found, at the time, whenever it was quite a big political debate at the time about other people going on other trips and individual political parties. I think just Fermanagh and Omagh got really unfortunately dragged into that. But I understand why, because China, of course, as we all know, do have big issues and challenges with their own human rights records. And as far as I'm concerned, there should be no hierarchy of attacks on innocent people, no matter what country that's in. And China does have a really messy and unfortunate record on that. I mean, Chair, even just looking at the report now, I see there's language about progressing from a friendship city agreement to a sister city agreement. But from my reading of the report, we're staying with the friendship city agreement. I mean, just to be completely honest, Chair, I didn't know until what the difference between those relationships were until before this meeting, until I went online and tried to find out what the answer is. And I have a little bit of an idea, but I'm still not entirely convinced. But frankly, whether it's a friendship city agreement or a sister city agreement, they're just words on a piece of paper. As not a single person in Fermanagh and Omagh, I suspect, would probably either understand or really even particularly care whether we have a friendship or a sister city agreement. I mean, it just seems that we're splitting hairs slightly in that. It just sounds, as I say, words on a page. I don't know if a single person or a single extra tourist is going to come to Fermanagh, whether as a result of this visit or any other engagement that happens after. I don't know whether a single job is going to come to Fermanagh after this visit. You know, I appreciate it. It's a great opportunity for them kids or them young people from the school that are about to go out. You know, great once in a lifetime opportunity for them personally. But otherwise, Chair, I don't know what this visit has gained or contributed to Fermanagh. Just being honest, Chair. As I say, I tried to keep an open mind. I didn't say anything up until this point, but that's just my thoughts, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, are you willing to second the noting of the report, Mark?
I'd prefer not to, only because it's asking about further engagement of things like that. But
Okay,
not
fair
opposing anything.
enough. Bernard?
Thank you, Chair. I'd be happy enough to second the proposal, but Barry, you brought up agri-food. You know, would Northern Ireland, you know, we're known for agri-food as well. Would we be on their radar, you know, regarding, you know, agri-food industry in Northern Ireland? Just
Chair, maybe just through you in the first instance, and Councillor McElduff may well add, just to confirm, so agri-food is one of the key pillars at a Northern Ireland level. So of particular interest within, I suppose, the Fermanagh area, and in terms of the business delegation that we hosted from Wangshur last year, it was really around food production, but also particularly around, I suppose, food biotech. So there's quite a bit of work ongoing with CAFRE at the moment in that regard. As I understand it, some of the university partnerships as well are particularly focused on agri-food industry and around food production more generally. So it's certainly a key pillar, both at a Northern Ireland level and certainly what China have indicated in their discussions to date with us.
Barry?
And I could add a wee bit of detail to that. I think it's well known that, for example, Lakeland Dairies have a strong contract with China in respect of agri-food. And whenever we were very specific in asking questions about the gaps in the market, we were reminded that China has 1.4 billion people to feed. And even though they have extensive industry themselves, they don't always have enough. So they're looking for partners. Now, specifically in the area of butter and milk, it could be powdered milk, it could be butter. There's two of the areas that they would like to do business with us on. And, you know, I've spoken to people about that since, you know, in the hope of brokering their interest, you know, and I'm sure others can do the same, you know, but to be very specific, that was one area that was mentioned specifically, was dairy products. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Barry. And Eddie?
Thanks, Chair, and thank you for the report. Going on from what Barry had said there, particularly about powdered milk products, I do remember a number of years ago now, there was an issue with baby milk powder in China, and to the point where actually in the UK we were putting a restriction on the sale of baby milk powder because Chinese nationals who live in here were actually sending it home. Such was the issue, and it was affecting supply here. And I think in the end up New Zealand ended up mopping up most of that because we couldn't deal with the demand. So there's a scenario there where generally the trust in that system in China is not great, and there probably is an opportunity, particularly on that powdered milk side of things. So yeah, in terms of the report, it's some of that is quite good, to be honest. I don't think that the $5,500 in the grand scheme of things was an obscene amount of money to spend on it, but equally, I would be cautious that we haven't seen any benefit from that yet, and we really should be assessing that over time, because you know we've seen in the past the likes of our relationship with Bracvida as a Enniskillen as a twin town has fallen to the wayside because it was deemed there was no benefit, and I wouldn't want us to be in a situation where we don't do the same in this boat. So I would like to see in future years at least some kind of research done by the council to demonstrate what improvements to the area the link has created before we were to go any further than where we are right now. Thank you, Chair.
Josephine?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Alison and Barry, for your reports and for enhancing the feedback, which was very useful. I would be in support of promoting our council links with China and Guangzhou. I think we have got to start somewhere. I mean, these are initial small steps, but what we have got to remember is that China has an absolutely huge population. It is an economy which requires many, many products, especially food and agricultural products, which we have in our district council area and throughout Northern Ireland. I do take Councillor Owen's comments about China's record on human rights, and we all know about that, and it is regrettable. But I think unless we work with governments, then we have no power to influence any of their decisions. I feel that our own economic growth in our council area may very well be enhanced by our links with China. And at a recent reception hosted by Invest NI, we heard about a recent trip to Japan by Ethna McNamee, who was really blown away by what she observed in Japan. And I think that, we can learn an awful lot from the Chinese people and where they have come from over the past half a century and even in more recent decades. We had a recent meeting of our Economic Development and Inward Investment Steering and Advisory Group, and we had lengthy discussions about promoting our local economy. And one of the points that were raised at that meeting was how to make our businesses more outward looking, and how we can. I feel that if we can provide confidence to our entrepreneurs and business people to go out and explore the Chinese market, then I think that we do stand to gain a lot economically. It will take time, it will take work, it will take courage, and it will also require a lot of strategic direction. But I'm happy that this council is spearheading that, because I do think that the benefits very much outweigh the risk. And in terms of our wonderful tourism product, which we have in Fermanagh and Omagh, we know that the Chinese people are very, very fond of touring. And if we can encourage them to come and see the exquisite landscape and the tourism that we can offer in our council area, then I think that it will be to our economic advantage. So I'm definitely in support of strengthening those links with China and with Guangzhou. Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you, Josephine. And Seamus?
Yeah, thanks very much for letting me in again. I suppose I shouldn't even take the bait on what Councillor Owen says, but
Well, then, if you think that, Seamus, I'll concur with you.
I just can't help myself. I suppose it's getting to the time of the year for Ebenezer Scrooge to
Seamus, I'm giving you some latitude here, but it's
again.
rapidly running out.
But for somebody to talk about Chinese and their civil rights abuses coming from a position of what Britain and their continuing funding of genocide in Gaza takes some brass neck, but I'll just say no more.
Okay, thanks. And just to be clear here, in the noting, Seamus and Bernard, you're agreeing that we extend the formal invitation and that we issue the letters of thanks to the various organizations that the delegation met. Yep. Everybody happy? Okay. Thank you very much. And now we're going to move on to, and thank you very much, Barry. 4.2, to consider a report on the update of the council constitution.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So this is just to bring members the most up-to-date or the current version of the council constitution. It's been updated to include current versions of all related documentation. There are, and I know some members have highlighted, Chair, there have obviously been some personnel changes in relation to the organisational structure. Those are in the process of being filled, and when those positions are filled, we will obviously update that accordingly. The council had previously agreed, Chair, to receiving 6 monthly reports. So the last report was actually November 2024. The constitution was updated at the time, but inadvertently the report was not presented. So this report regularises that, and it means our next report would be to the June 2026 committee. So
Okay.
just recommending noting the amendments accordingly, Chair.
Thanks, Alison. Anne-Marie?
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, Alison, for that. Happy to propose the recommendation as set out. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Anne-Marie. And Mark?
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Alison, for that. I suppose, Chair, if I could make just two or a little comment at the start. I mean, I have lots of observations from joining this council, but the two observations that come to mind most to me are, I mean, and you'll know as a former chair, whenever we have our monthly council meetings, it feels to me sometimes that we spend the first hour, sometimes the first 2 hours, just going through the minutes of the previous meeting. And that's not particularly a good, and I understand why sometimes it's important to do that and why it's sometimes to discuss matters arising in detail. But really, it's not always a great use of the council's time, and particularly given that council meetings are limited to only 3.5 hours. So that's one observation. And then the second observation, again, this is just a personal observation of mine, but I find it sometimes exceedingly difficult to get information out of this council sometimes. And, you know, even what I would consider relatively routine requests, you know, financial affairs, contracts, things like that, I just find it really difficult and unnecessarily difficult to get information out of the council. And then, I mean, I do have a struggle, Chair, that the line that I'm told whenever I ask for information, we are regularly told as members, well, you need to submit that as a freedom of information request, as if we're, and I appreciate we are local people, we're local ratepayers as well, but I would have thought being elected to this council gives us a degree of oversight or ability to ask those questions that local people would expect us. So I'm not really comfortable with the idea that, and it's more than an idea, it is the practice in operation at the moment that we're told we have to submit FOIs. So, Chair, long story short, rather than nodding through this constitution tonight, I mean, fundamentally, I've no real big issues with the constitution, little things here and there, but on the whole, stand over constitution, fine. But could I make a proposal, Chair, that rather than nod it through tonight, that for next month's PNR committee, that officers bring back a report that give councillors and members the ability to ask questions. And just very briefly, what I mean by that is, and there's a really good, you know, there's a really good benchmark in place in Mid and East Antrim Council. There was actually a Mid and East Antrim councillor that told me about their policy, where a councillor, you know, whatever it is, 5 days, 7 days before a council meeting, writes into the council and says, "Dear council, I would request information on this." And it could be a short answer, it could be a longer answer. And it goes through the chair, goes through the chief executive, it's approved, and it's drafted. The response is drafted by council officers. It's on the agenda. The response is published on the agenda, and then it comes to the meeting, and the member who asked the question has a quick supplementary. And it's, I think, Mid and East Antrim Council are the only other one in Northern Ireland that do it. But councillors' questions are very common or very popular across the water, Chair. So could I make that a proposal tonight? Because I do think it would help add to the transparency and the oversight that we as members have.
Okay, Mark, I'm going to bring Alison in because I think there's a couple of things being sort of brought together here that may not naturally sit. So, Alison?
Yes, Chair, certainly. So I know Councillor Robbins has made obviously a proposal, so members can determine on that. I think a few things just that I would maybe clarify. So the Constitution is obviously for members, the changes are all tracked. There is no articulation or interrogation that's actually required in my view, but we're very happy to take any queries that members have. The process that Councillor Ovens has referenced, Chair, quite frequently happens. Members often, particularly actually on financial matters, submit questions in advance. Detail is provided, and we certainly share the information. And I know in the previous mandate, we certainly encourage that, particularly when we were having at times difficulty in concluding meetings within the allotted time. I think with regard to the reference around openness and transparency, Chair, everything is open, everything is transparent. Meetings are available. Indeed, we've a member in the public gallery this evening, and everything is streamed live. So I would certainly, I'm unclear as to the reference in that regard. And specifically with regard to access to information requests, and it's something that we have commented on, I suppose, at previous meetings. We operate on a committee system, Chair. So the way that officers work is we prepare committees for consideration by members. Those are scrutinised, decided upon, decisions are taken. Members routinely ask questions which we provide information and responses to. The members are required to have access to all information to enable them to take a decision, and that is always provided. On occasion, members are asking for information that actually doesn't, they may have an interest in, but doesn't pertain to their decision-making role. We assess all those requests in the context of the requirement for the information, the reporting, and if it has already been provided. There are certain circumstances when it is appropriate that those information requests are dealt with as access to information or freedom of information requests, and we do so on that basis. By a member being a person being an elected member certainly entitles members to information. But I think in the context of the legislation, Chair, it's not a roving commission to continually review, to seek, for example, tenders, contracts, sealed documents, or other matters which would be commercially sensitive. So there are appropriate arrangements for reporting to members, and there are appropriate arrangements for members to seek additional information.
Okay, thanks for that clarification, Alison. And Eddie?
Thanks, Chair. And yeah, I wouldn't agree with most of what Councillor Ovens says, but one thing he did point out at the start there is the time it takes at the start of a meeting. Now, when it comes to matters arising and things, obviously we want to go in order, so it's a bit easier to kind of go through things. But most of the time, the vast majority of the time, the accuracy side of things is pretty much on point. And it does take, if you've got a 22-page document, you want page 1, page 2, etc. So is there any scope or latitude for us to essentially, rather than going through page by page, simply asking councillors, are there any issues or queries of accuracy for those papers? Because I know we probably get an hour's work done in 3 a lot of the time, and probably most of that is our fault from talking too much. But sometimes there is that kind of procedural thing where that happens every single time we go through a paper, and I would say 5% or less of the time when it comes to accuracy, there actually is an issue.
Okay, I'm going to ask Alan to comment, but before Alison comments, the only thing that I would sort of, from 5 years experience here of council, is that it is very, very important to still hold that scrutiny role, guys. And it is important to understand that making decisions is one element of the whole thing, but it's ensuring those decisions are enacted and what, if anything, needs to be done to tweak them once we see them enacted and sort of see how they're going. So I think it's very important to review what we do. Now, is it possible to not talk as long and that everybody feels the need to talk on the same subject and bring in? I think that's part of the chairing of any committee when, quite honestly, if you're asking the same questions over and over again, just to get on the record to say it, it's a bit like when we have delegations in and everybody wants to thank the delegation. Let's just allow the chair to thank the delegation for coming in, and that covers everybody. This continuous thing where you personally need to do it, guilty as anyone, but I think we can put in place ourselves as 40 councillors little tweaks. I think we're not far off, as you say, Eddie, we're not far off the thing, and it's important, but there's just little tweaks there that if we're willing to look at them, put them in place and then follow them is the key, then we can shorten it a little bit there. But I think that scrutiny of what has happened or what is proposed is always very important. Alison, do you want to?
No, all I was just going to say was a similar point, Chair. Actually, the accuracy doesn't take very long. The discussion really is in the matters arising, and I think that's appropriately the case. I also think, Chair, and we have had scenarios in the past as well, whereby when we're querying decisions in particular, members have generally appreciated the opportunity for the scrutiny of the minutes in that way. But I think we can, I suppose, all be sensitive to it, and some go more quickly than others. What I would say to councillors, particularly those who are with us in this mandate, it was by no means a guarantee that we would even get through matters arising previously for the first set of minutes. So things have changed too.
Okay, thanks, Anne-Marie, and thank you, Eddie, for that question. Seamus?
Yeah, I agree totally with the chair on the scrutiny element of the council. I think it's almost becoming a day in art where councillors actually scrutinise. I believe we're very seldom ever have to take that extra half hour now. I almost don't shoot the messenger in this one, but I almost harp back to the last mandate when there was scrutiny to high heaven. It almost was better than very little scrutiny. I feel that in this mandate we've almost fell asleep. 45 minutes it took last night for RNC. I was just commenting to one of the councillors after it was over that I must look back over the minutes of RNC over the last 5, 6, 7 years, because there mustn't be the same amount of stuff coming in front of us when an RNC meeting can be finished in 45 minutes. I don't think that's good for the council. I don't think, to be honest, the 17-member committees is good for the council. Look around us tonight. There's the interest in actually turning up. I know there's a lot of councillors online, and for one reason or another they're online. But there's a lot of councillors then that's barred from coming, who always had a contribution to make, always wanted to turn up, and they are not allowed to turn up now and ask questions because of the 17 member committees. And I know that was the majority of the council voted for that, but just because the majority votes for it doesn't say it's right. And I just think the council hasn't the same scrutiny anymore because of the decisions we've made. And I'd just like to maybe finish by asking, is there less on the likes of RNC and PNR, and why are they being able to finish so quick? You know, is it just the fact that nobody asks any questions anymore, and that's why?
Are you willing to second a noting of the? Thanks, Seamus. Yeah, yes. Before I get Alison to respond there, Seamus, I think it is fair to point out, while I too would be an advocate of the full member committees, and I think that worked well, and I think it gave everybody equal opportunity to do. It wasn't the will of the council, and there's democracy in action for you. But I suppose I point to the example of Barry here this evening that can come and speak at the thing. I do fully appreciate that your vote is then not cast as just a speaker in the evening. So I take your point, but it's not fair to say that you can't attend the meeting. You can and speak at it. Alison?
Thanks, Chair. It was just on Councillor Green's latter queries. I wasn't at the meeting last night, but I did. I saw the agenda. No, I think if you looked at it in the round and over the year, I think it is generally comparable. There would be perhaps some matters that there would have been particular interest in previous mandates where reports would have been requested, additional reports, if you like. But certainly, I think overall the content on the agendas would be similar. Certainly, the content, for example, for policy and resources is very similar as it always has been. And I suppose the only other point I would just make, Chair, about membership, and I know you've alluded to it, but this is something that the council can revisit in terms of committee membership, and you do so on an annual basis. So there is the opportunity for that to be explored again in June.
Yep. And democracy, as Seamus well knows, wins the day on that one. Eddie, I'm just going to allow you back in for.
I was just going to scrutinise the point just there. Just to be, there's been apparently not that much of it. But we're 2 points in, and I think there's been a fair amount of scrutiny over the two things to this stage. And yes, we've seen even tonight, Barry was a perfect example where councillors are perfectly able and willing to come in if they have anything they want to point out. Well, they can come in as often as they like, so there's not really an issue on that front, if I'm honest. But again, if the discussion wants to take place, it was Seamus' own party that kind of agreed that it was going to be 17 members, so I'll leave it at that.
There you go. Democracy in action. Okay, Victor.
Thank you, Chair. Well, certainly, I agree with Eddie's point there. Like, obviously, and you've said it already, so I'm not going to go over it again. Where councillors can make a request to visit any of the committees. And I would have to say that all the smaller committees have worked a lot better previous years in the last mandate. Let's be honest with you, you and me have both lost more follicles over time on the last mandate. It was a difficult time. I don't see a problem, and I'll second Mark's proposal. I don't see a problem with us putting back this, even on your own comments, Chair. Putting back the decision on this for a month and getting a report back on it. So I will second Mark's proposal. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Victor. And that means that I have two proposals at this stage, and the first one to be seconded was the proposal by Anne-Marie, seconded by Seamus. So I'm going to put that proposal to the meeting, that we agree the changes to the Constitution and note them here this evening. Are we all agreed? Agreed? Okay. Well, if that is the case, then the Mark indicating. Go ahead, Mark.
Thank you, Chair, and I appreciate that was the decision of the council to proceed now with this current review. But as far as I mean, there'd be no reason why we still couldn't ask for a report to come forward to next month's meeting, even now that this 6-monthly review has passed. I mean, would now not be the optimum or the perfect time to bring forward a report? And just briefly, Chair, I mean, I agree wholeheartedly with what you said there about scrutiny, the importance of scrutiny sometimes. And I actually agree with Seamus about, I mean, I've been in PNR committees before that have been over in about 30 minutes. And I would argue this would be one of the most important committees, just given the financial implications of it. And just to be clear for colleagues, I mean, questions, it's not something that we should fear or the council should fear. I would consider questions in advance, and I'm not talking about, giving members the right to ask any question on any issue on the night. We would table questions in advance. There would be a response drafted in advance. It would be shared with all councillors. Then a quick supplementary. I would consider that as something that would improve scrutiny. And just briefly on the point about the committees, and I mean that's fine. I acknowledge, I recognise that we can all go to other committees. But as far as I understand, unless we raise it under AOB, even tonight, we're limited really on what we can speak unless it's an agenda item. So we haven't really got that much scope on raising issues during committee meetings.
Okay, Mark. First of all, we have a system that has been tried and well tested, that you've got to have an agenda at any meeting, and you got to follow some sort of an agenda, or a bit like what's happening, we go off on tangents into the here and now, and we will take forever and not get business done. So we need to follow some sort of an agenda. There is ample opportunity to get various bits and pieces that you want covered in under some agenda item on the meeting, or indeed then under any other business if it's notified to the chair. So you have that ability if it's anywhere connected to the committee that you're dealing with. In reference specifically, and Mark, if you can be specific for me here, what exactly are you looking that a report should be coming back to?
Yeah. And thanks, Chair. So basically that we would go away, our council officers would go away, particularly Mid and East Antrim Council, because it's a Northern Ireland Council, that we would look at their questions, their councillors' questions protocol, I think it's called. It's in their standing orders. I had a quick look this afternoon. They actually go further and allow public members to ask questions. But I think in the first instance, if we focus on councillors and then
Mark, I'm not going to take that, because we already have that ability for you to first of all come in there and be able to speak to officers if you have any issue around whatever the stream is. You have the opportunity to ask questions at the committees and so forth. So I'm going to move on here, Mark.
But Chair, that hasn't been my experience. My experience
well,
has been,
Mark,
I'm
going to take that as your experience, which I think is regrettable, but it's not the overall experience. Anne-Marie?
Yeah, I just wanted to come in to say we already have that process in place. The directors and heads of service are more than willing to answer any questions and provide any information we want. So I don't think that's necessary what he's asking for.
No, and that's why we're moving on. Okay, thank you very much. We're moving on to 5.1 then, to consider a report on consultations. So, Louise?
Okay, thank you, Chair. So the first item, the only item for decision, is the draft response to the Northern Ireland Housing Executive Draft Supporting People's Strategic Intent 26 to 31. So our response welcomes the strategic aims referenced within the strategic intent report and the vital role that Supporting People programme plays in enabling vulnerable individuals to live independently. Our response identifies a number of challenges in terms of the rural service accessibility and funding constraints, and asks for stronger local authority involvement in decision making. Then there are a number of items for information. So forthcoming consultations to which a response will be presented to PNR. So firstly on the draft roads maintenance strategy, and secondly the small business rate relief options. Consultation responses submitted on the Northern Ireland Audit Office consultation on local government draft code of audit, and the DFC's consultation on disability and work strategy for Northern Ireland. Consultations refer to other committees, environmental services on any NIE networks consultation, and RNC on consultation on revised decent homes standard. And quite a long list of consultations for noting. There was a consultation which was launched yesterday, so that's the DFC 10-year disability strategy, and that's due 20th of March, so we will draft a response for members on that. So the recommendation is that Council approves the draft response to be submitted in relation to the NI Housing Executive. Secondly, it's recommended the Council notes the additional information on forthcoming consultations submitted since the last PNR. Those refer to other committees and consultations for noting. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Louise. And Josephine?
Thank you, Chair, and I want to thank Louise and her team for preparing this report, and in particular for preparing what I consider to be an excellent consultation response to the NIHE Supporting People document. I realise, Chair, that it takes an enormous amount of time and effort and expertise to complete these consultation responses on our behalf. And this particular consultation response is very strong. And as you are aware, this council is very concerned about housing provision within our council area. And in fact, we have recently had a half-day housing conference, which was very beneficial and explored a lot of a lot of issues. I want to just make so I want to propose the recommendation first of all, Chair, but I want to make a specific mention of the proposal that Fermanagh and Omagh District Council encourage enhanced use of the community planning partnership as a formal mechanism for aligning housing support with health, education, economic development priorities. Chair, I don't know if members are familiar with a very excellent project, the Skeog Health Action Plan, which was launched in the Guildhall in Derry in the summertime. But really what it was emphasising was that you can build houses, but you cannot be successful in building communities unless you provide the support that is needed to support the people who live there. Now, admittedly, the Shantallow area of Derry and such areas are different from our council area, but the principles remain the same, that if communities are to thrive, they have to have the proper infrastructure. And I think that our community planning partnership is an excellent vehicle for delivering such things as services and health initiatives and so on. So I think that is an important point to emphasise. But I want to propose the recommendations, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Josephine. And Anne-Marie?
Thank you, Chair. Happy to second the recommendation for approval and noting, but I was wondering in terms of the response, I think it was November's RNC committee, there was a table that listed the stark difference, which in terms of poverty in our district across different age groups. I'm wondering, would it be useful to put that table in there as opposed to just referencing it when we have the figures? It's not, I think it was Director Boyle had that available. That would be useful maybe to include in the response. And I know timing's an issue, but that should be easily enough got.
I'm sure
Thank
that
you.
can be accommodated, Louise. Yep. Okay. Are we all agreed? Okay. Thank you, members. And moving on then to 5.2 and to consider a report on financial matter, and that's paper D. And
Thank
Yeah.
you, Chair. Good evening, members. So tonight's report on financial matters includes management accounts for the 7-month period ended October, and to also note the annual audit letter for 24-25 issued by the Northern Ireland Audit Office. So members, 2 appendices to support that paper. So the first one is the management accounts for the 7 months with net operating expenditure of £23,898,185 out of a budget profiled for the same period of £24,999,033. That equates to expenditure to be financed, members, of £25,064,211 out of a profiled funding budget of £26,165,059. Members, just noting at section 2.13 of the report that the management accounts, and that's the profiled budget column for the period, reflects the council decision at its meeting on the 2nd of December to allocate £350,000 of funding for a community support programme. So the community services budget has been increased by £350,000 and the democratic services budget has been reduced by £350,000. In terms of the Northern Ireland annual audit letter, members, it's included, as I said, at Appendix 2. It was considered this morning at the Council's audit panel meeting, and at section 3.2.2, members, just noting the legislative requirements for the Council in relation to the publication of the annual audit letter, which really summates the work of the Audit Office and in very top level numbers, the financial statements for the year end 31st of March 2025, to provide notification to the local government auditor of the date of publication and to make copies available for purchase should any person require such. So, members, subject to any queries, the recommendations at section 9 is the approval of the management accounts for the period ended 31st of October, and that the Council notes the Northern Ireland Audit Office Annual Audit Letter 24-25 and its publication on the Council website. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Catherine. Have we any questions or comments? If not, can I have a proposer and second for the report? That busy looking online, I missed the chamber. Eddie, thank you very much. And Anne-Marie, seconding. Victor, were you just testing the handout? You were. That's it. Okay, are we all agreed? Okay, thank you, members. Moving to 5.3 then, to consider a report on procurement policy. Joe?
Yep. Chair, thank you. So we have an update on the procurement policy. And by way of background, members, just to ensure everyone's up to speed. So the existing council procurement policy was last reviewed in 2020. So our review is due. At the Policy and Resources Committee in May, a draft updated procurement policy was brought before members. And following that meeting, a facilitated member workshop took place on the 28th of May to look at two specific issues. One, the adequacy of declarations within the procurement policy and our approach, and also whether additional information could be sought for suppliers. So we looked at that in detail, and further revisions were made to the procurement policy. A second workshop was then scheduled in November to look at two further aspects in detail. One, in relation to increasing the tender thresholds and supporting information and rationale around that, and also details of what's happening in other comparator councils across Northern Ireland. And also significantly further details around ethical procurement, which members are interested in relation to supplier exclusions. So there was detailed information considered at both those two workshops, and really that has, and members' queries in and around that, and that has really brought us to the updated revised procurement policy before members this evening at Appendix 1. So just took you through in Section 2 the key changes that are being presented at this meeting. So, and again, just to outline that we've had significant legal review around the policy itself, the changes and members' queries. So in terms of changes, you'll note change in Section 1 that there's specific reference to the Northern Ireland Public Procurement Policy Statement. So that's a core procurement policy document. It's a new document, and it sets out the strategic priorities for public procurement in Northern Ireland. And within that, there are a number of specific references and guidance notes in relation to ethical procurement, which we know is of interest to members. So within the Public Procurement Policy Statement, under Principle 3, Social Value, there is specific reference to two policy procurement notes. One in relation to social value in procurement, in which it's outlined that the policy in relation to ethical and resilient supply chains will be guided by international best practice set out in the UN Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights, the OECD Guidelines for Multinational Enterprises, and the Global Solvent Principles. And we know that that's something that members are interested in, and it's in there within our policy. Secondly, to note PPN 0521, specifically looking at human rights declarations, human rights in public procurement, and mandating the actions that organisations must take to incorporate human rights considerations within contracts. So that change is that's an update to the procurement policy. A further update is to the procurement policy is the inclusion then of a separate and distinct ethical code of conduct for suppliers, and that's members presented as Appendix 2. So this is a new addition to the policy following our workshops, and it's really to add clarity and to clarify and bring out and strengthen the Council's requirements around ethical procurement, really around the overall ambition of the Council to use its spending power for good and for benefit of the community, incorporating ethical and sustainable supply chains, community benefits and wealth building. So that's a further addition. And also members to note on the third aspect of Section 2.1, the updated Human Rights Declaration with additional extensions to the declaration in regards to international law and human rights. Also to note in the updated procurement policy, there has been an update to a very recent amendment that came through on thresholds aligned with former EU thresholds of reporting. So that's on page 14 of the policy. To confirm with members that the policy has been screened in accordance with our quality system and found to have no adverse impacts in any Section 75 group, and has also been subject to rural proofing. And there's also been a further few more minor amendments in relation to smaller changes of a typographical nature within the policy. So you'll see it's presented. Any further changes as presented this evening are outlined in a green font. So subject to any queries, members, the recommendation is that the council approves the updated revised procurement policy and associate updates that are required to the financial regulations.
Okay, thank you, Jill. Dermot?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, so I suppose to start off by, first of all, thanking the officers for bringing this to us again tonight and for facilitating our discussions on this through the workshops and things like that. It took a long time, I suppose, to get here, but it's such a big issue and it has wide consequences, and it was worth the time to take to get it right. I think it's an area where there's an awful lot of changes taking place with the Procurement Act coming in, and social value now coming to the fore through procurement as well. So, but I just want to focus on the ethical procurement stuff, because I think what we're doing tonight is really, really important in reaffirming that our council will use the resources wisely in a way that promotes human rights and doesn't increase the suffering for people around the world through corrupt governments or businesses. So I think it's having now an ethical code of conduct for suppliers is a step forward. I realise that there are legal constraints on what can be done in this area. I would personally like us to be able to go further, but I understand that legally there are challenges there. But given where we are, I think this is positive. It's a step forward, and it sends a message that we're taking a lead on this issue, because I don't think any other council in the north has yet affirmed an ethical procurement policy as strong as our one. So we should be congratulated for that, I suppose. And just again, Chair, to happy to propose the recommendations. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Dermot. And Nolene?
Yes, hello. Thank you, Chair. Just like to agree with Dermot's comments there on the ethical procurement. I think it's really, really important. If you don't mind, I would just have a really, really small suggestion on one little sentence on the draft procurement policy on page 12. At number 6, under fair dealing, where it says, treat everyone in an equitable and fair manner, regardless of religious belief, political opinion, racial group, age, marital statements, sexual orientation. And then it says, between men and women generally. It goes on about regardless of disability and whether you have dependents. Could I just suggest very, very small change just for the sake of inclusion? Instead of saying between men and women generally, you just say between genders. It just makes it more inclusive, and personally I just think it sounds a little bit better. That is my only suggestion there, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, and are you willing to second, Nolene, if that addition is incorporated?
Yes, of course, yeah, I'm willing to second that.
Okay, and Dermot, are you happy with the incorporation of that?
Yeah, that's fine, Chair.
Okay, thank you. And I have Josephine.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I want to thank Jill for her report and the work that she and her staff have put into this. I think it is a very good document, very comprehensive, and it really is a marked enhancement on our previous policy. And in particular, I want to make a comment on theme 4, promoting well-being, and that we, in our procurement, we would support the well-being of staff, suppliers, customers and communities in the delivery of the contract, because I know that many people feel quite strongly that as ratepayers, where the council is providing a service or is tendering for a service, that when that tender is approved, that there should be note taken of the well-being aspect of it, and that should be factored into our decision making. So I think that theme 4, promoting well-being, captures this very well, Chair. So I just wanted to make that point.
Okay, thanks, Josephine. Mark?
Thank you, Chair. And sounds just even from the debate tonight that this issue has moved on. So, I mean, Chair, this is the third time now where I've raised the issue of the procurement, the raising of the procurement thresholds on a comparative table in terms of where we sit against the other 11 or the other 10 councils. I appreciate I wasn't able to get to that last workshop. Unfortunately, it didn't, that time of day just didn't suit me. But I think I picked it up, Jill, correctly, that may have been discussed at that workshop. But Chair, I would have found it just personally useful for that to have been reflected in the meeting papers for tonight, because ultimately it's this committee that's taking the decision before we go to council for full approval. But so workshop was useful, but the workshop was not the decision making point at time. The information should have been furnished now. So, Chair, firstly, it would be a query to Jill then. Do we have a table, Jill? And I'm not sure whether you're able to give us an update in terms of how many of the 11 councils now have increased their procurement threshold from 30 to 50,000. So that's the level in which council officers take a decision before it has to come to council. Because, Chair, it won't surprise some, but I have a big concern with that. Depending on Jill's response, we mightn't necessarily push this to a division. It sounds like the deal has been done anyway with one of the parties in the call. But, Chair, as a very quick illustration, I mean, I've raised concerns about procurement decisions before, but just even in terms of oversight and awareness, I recently asked the council for a copy of a tender submission, but because it came in even below the 30,000, so the lower level, so not even taken into account the likely higher level after tonight, I was told effectively, no, we're not going to share it with you at the tender submission. And the response I got from the council was, as the value of the contract was less than £30,000, as per the council's procurement policy, there is no requirement for the detail of this process to be noted at committee. That may well be the factual position. I was asking for that information, Chair, regardless of what legally the council must do. I would have felt as a member of this council, we had an entitlement if we were being asked or if issues were raised with us, particularly of topical contracts with the council, whether it's 50p or £49,000 now, I would have felt we as members had the right to see that tender submission. Really disappointed that the council hasn't shared that. I've gone back again today to the council asking again for a copy of that tender submission to be shared with me. But Chair, it's just part of the wider narrative. I am concerned that, if this is approved tonight, we're effectively given more authority. We're taking more authority or more power away from the council chamber. We just had a really good debate a little earlier about scrutiny. This will be less scrutiny because less decisions will come to this council. So, but if Jill could come back on that issue of where the other councils are, Chair, I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Cheers, Mark. Jill?
Yes, Chair, happy to provide an update. So after the second workshop, the slides were circulated and they're in the resources section on One Advanced platform. The table is there for members' reference. So as of today's date, 6 councils have moved to the higher thresholds. 2 councils have target dates for early next year. And 2 councils, Belfast City Council and Derry City Council, are awaiting legal advice, but not in relation to the tender thresholds. The indication are that they will move, but it's within a related issue to do with sealing of documents. So the vast majority of other councils have now fully moved to those higher thresholds, and all central government departments as well are moving to those thresholds. I think it's important to note the threshold, the 30,000 threshold, has been in place in this council for 10 years, and there's inflationary increases, and I suppose there's a rationale in terms of proportionality around that. In terms of the second query, Councillor Robbins, access to information, in terms of portions of that tender information are available under Freedom of Information should you wish to make that request. The tender documents themselves are commercially sensitive. They contain companies' proposals and their ideas, their intellectual property as what they proposed. And internally, when we assess tender documents, there's very clear guidance in terms of confidentiality, conflicts of interest, and the Freedom of Information process would be the most appropriate vehicle to make that request through if you wish to access that tender.
Thanks, Jill. Anne-Marie?
Just a quick question, Chair, for Jill. I assume that any parties that present a tender, that if they aren't successful, that you provide feedback to those involved. So there's no reason to come around the houses, around the councillors asking those questions. If any business were unsuccessful, they can maybe learn and understand where they went wrong. Thank you.
Yes, just to confirm, Chair, that is part of the tender process, that feedback is provided to unsuccessful tenders. Yeah.
Okay, can I just check something there? I didn't get around to it, but I looked at a tender that had went out for a specific sum as the sort of the benchmark, as it were, and then I seen that the tender was won by a company X. I can't remember what it was, but there was no sum, attached to it. In cases like that, where there was other tenders that were put out, this was the sort of the recommended price, and the company had come in at either above or below, and it's there. Then, if that information's not there, councillors would be entitled to seek that information.
Yes, Chair. So if I interpret, first of all, and I'm not privy to detail, but Councillor Ovens' request, if a councillor, indeed anyone, asked for someone's tender submission, there are elements of that which are commercially sensitive. So the appropriate mechanism for requesting that is access to information. The submission is reviewed, the elements that can be released are released, the elements which are commercially sensitive are retained, or there may be some I'm just thinking of the word, not eradications, but some redactions in the document. Members are advised in relation to our tenders, the field, for example, the price range obtained, the successful tender, the sum for the successful tender, and the details of the wider pricing is also included in the confidential section on One Advanced. So that information is already provided.
In the One Advanced.
Yes.
Yeah. No, that clarifies that. Victor, are you just holding your hand up, or did you want to come in?
No, I want to come in, Chair, please.
Okay. Thank you.
I don't think as councillors, at the end of the day, we are the management team. We are the directors, call us whatever you want. And I don't think we should have to go down the road of issuing an FOA to get information. Like, it's not a situation where we're going to, yes, if it is sensitive information, we're not going to make the information we get public. We want to scrutinize that information ourselves. So I don't think it's basically it's not unfair of us to ask to see certain information without having to put an FOA in for it. At the end of the day, we are the people who make the decisions.
Okay, thanks, Victor. And pop your hand down for me. I'm just going to get Alison to confirm where we had just got to there a little minute ago, hopefully.
Okay, no, Chair, just by way of summary, routinely we provide information. We provide information at meetings. We provide information outside of meetings. We provide information verbally. We provide it in writing. We provide all manner of information. What we're speaking in relation to are the queries that have been put to me this evening. There are certain requests for information that we receive, be they from elected members, be they from members of the public, where it is appropriate for that, the manner of the information sought, it is appropriate for it to be dealt with in accordance as what's known as an ATI, an access to information request. That is, we do, that information is provided, or in the event that information is not provided, the reason for it not being provided is also disclosed to the individual requesting the information. So I think it's I'm not suggesting Councillor Warrington was indicating this. So routinely information is provided, all information is available. We have our websites, we have everything else. It is unusual for an elected member to seek a copy of a tender submission. It is appropriate in such a request that is dealt with under access to information legislation, and the information is then screened accordingly, and the information, when the panel would meet, whatever is released, and the members have a mechanism for that to be dealt with. In relation to the wider piece around tenders, Chair, the commercial, the pricing, that is contained on the One Advanced section of the website and has been for some time. The range and all other information is widely available. And the pre-tender estimate indeed is also available prior to going out.
Okay, and I think that is really, really clearly spelled out there, guys. Mark, you have been in before, so.
Yeah, just a very brief comment, Chair, and I think it would be helpful just for colleagues or for members on the meeting just to understand in terms of the particular tender submission that I was requesting, just to set that what that is. That's to do with the MW Advocate. So this outside external PR company that was being brought in to this council under fairly vague terms. We have spent tens of thousands of local ratepayers' money on that company. I have asked for information on what that company's doing. I was told to send in the FOI. The FOI took ages to respond to, heavily redacted. So again, still as it sits now, however many months, well over a year from the contract was awarded, I have no idea as a member of this council and as a local ratepayer what exactly we're paying that particular company to do. So just for context, Chair, I think it's particular. I'm not asking about a building contract or about anything else. It's that particular contract with the outside PR company. It's topical. It was topical at the time. So just for context, I think helpful for colleagues to know what the question was. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for the clarification, Mark. Eddie?
Thanks, Chair. That last part where Councillor Robbins doesn't seem to know why they were employed. We've had discussions in this chamber. We have had discussions exactly why they were hired. There's an insinuation in what Councillor Robbins is saying that for some reason things are being kept from him. Everyone in this room has heard it on numerous occasions. If Councillor Ovens didn't, he needs to take the cotton out of his ears because everyone else heard it. Okay. That there's not much else I have to say on that. It's very frustrating to hear that once again. You know, there's an insinuation there, and it needs to be nipped in the bud, if I'm honest.
Okay. Thanks, Eddie. And we have the document proposed and seconded. We all agreed? Okay, thank you. Moving to 5.4 and to consider report on procurement and tenders. And Alma.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Members, the report tonight in terms of matters for decision or tender to be issued at section 2.1, and I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, I think 7 contracts extensions at 2.2, and then the remainder of the report, members, is for noting. So section 3.1 includes 2 tenders that have been awarded under delegated authority, and section 3.2 notes the use of Crown Commercial Services Framework for public sector legal services. Subject to any queries, members, the recommendations are at section 9.1 and 9.2 of the report. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Karen. If there's no queries or comments, can I have a proposal and seconder? Anne-Marie?
Chair, just a quick question, Chair, for Catherine. I see that the winter gritting and snow clearance was awarded under delegated authority. If that had been, I guess, a 1-year period, if that had an option of an extension, would that need to have come to ourselves for final approval? I'm just wondering, just for ease of administration, we're going to need that service again next year. Is that something that we could maybe look at having the option for an extension included in the like of that?
Through the Chair, it would be too late at this stage because the period of the tender would have to be notified to all public bodies that wanted to supply it.
Next time, maybe?
Yeah, we'll take note of that. Thank you, Chair.
I'm happy to propose recommendations as set out in 9.1 and 9.2. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Bernard, you're willing to second. Okay, are we all agreed? Thank you. Moving to 5.5, Alma?
Thank you, Chair. So this is a report, all items, 4 items on the report for noting for information. The first item, just a reminder about the Christmas closure arrangements. And then at item 2.2, you have a link to the annual report and accounts of NILGOS, which is the council's pension scheme. At 2.3, you have an update in relation to the NILGOS employers' contribution rates for 26, 27, 27, 28 and 28, 29. And then at 2.4, we're sharing with you their information that has been shared with us in relation to the trade union side pay claims for the 2026-27 pay negotiations. I'm happy to take any queries, Chair, and the recommendations are for to note those items, and those are detailed in 8.1 of the report.
Okay, thanks, Thelma. Have we any questions or comments? If not, can I have a proposer and seconder? Eddie and Anne-Marie proposing and seconding. All agreed? Thank you. Moving to 5.6, consider report of Director of Corporate Services and Governance. John.
Chair, thank you. So 4 items by way of update for noting. The first is an update on access to information response rates. So there was a request to provide an update this at last month's P&R committee meeting. The data is provided, and we also benchmark that data against UK central government response rates and local government response rates where we have that, and our data is commensurate with those benchmarks. 2.2, again, as a request at November's Policy and Resources Committee, a specific request on district data on the disability employment gap, that was following on from a consultation response we submitted. So the data is presented in terms of where we are currently. There is a significant disability employment gap within our region, 37.6%, slightly lower than the Northern Ireland average. NISRA produce very good statistics in this to track that and longer term trends. Over the past 10 years, the gap has fallen by 10.5%, and I suppose it highlights the importance of programs that we have running across the council which support people with disabilities into employment through the Labour Market Partnership and programs such as the REAP Employability Programme. 2.3 members is the biannual complaints monitoring report. So that's a 6-month report. You'll note 6 months ago we had the first annual complaints monitoring report, and there's a requirement to provide a 6-month update in terms of the data, and there is also comparisons and benchmarks with this time last year, and within the report there are some recommendations around lessons learned from complaints and compliments that we have to the council. And finally, Chair, 2.4 is the usual quarterly update on council actions and progress against those, and also the quarterly update in relation to progress against policy and resource committee actions for the last 3 months. So the recommendation, Chair, in section 9 is that the council notes those 4 updates across those areas.
Okay, thank you, Jill. Dermot?
Thanks, Chair. I'm happy to propose the recommendations there, but just to comment very briefly on the data which is provided there on the disability employment gap, and actually some very good news there, because we've come from 48.1% of a gap down to, what are we now, 37.6. You know, so that's an improvement of over 10 percentage points, which shows that we are doing something right. We're climbing up the table in terms of the other council areas. Now, obviously, we have a lot more work to do, but we can learn from the success that we have had up to date and build on that. So thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Dermot. And Mark?
Thank you, Chair, and I'm happy to second the report if Dermot proposed it, or if not, I'm happy to propose. Jill, thanks for the report. Two things. Firstly, I mean, FOI seems to be the buzzword of tonight's meeting, but the access to information piece, Jill, I mean, looking at these figures, it does look like, and looking only at the full year effect figures, so those 3 years where we have full year data, they're only the ones you could draw genuine comparisons to. The response rate has declined year on year. I mean, 89% now down to 78% last year. That's an 11% drop in percentage terms. I mean, so my first question would be, why is that? Why is performance deteriorating rather than improving? And I mean, whenever I look at that, I would understand it if it was solely down to an uptake, or an uptake in terms of numbers of responses or numbers of requests for information, but it's not. I mean, in 1 year, there was 1 extra request, but performance from that year to the next dipped by 6%. So it would just be useful to get a little bit of clarity on that. I mean, not to repeat it, Chair, but my experience of FOIs or ATIs, as they're called, with the council is pretty poor. lots of the time requests are made for extensions and they only come through the day the responses are due to come through anyway. And my feeling is the more difficult it is that people find it, or the more reluctant the council is to share information, the more enthusiastic those people will be to seek information out of the
Okay, I
council.
think you've made that point on a few occasions.
I have, Chair, thank you. And then just moving to the second point, Jill, it's the complaints. I see, so FODC received 123 complaints as well for the first 6 months. I'm just getting the data here. So yes, 123 complaints in this period, but the same period shows an 84%. So the 24-25 April to September report showed 84 complaints received in that period. That's a 50% increase in complaints. Just to get a comment or an explanation on that. I know various people will make various complaints for various reasons, but a 50% increase from one reporting period to the next is very significant and more than statistically significant. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Jill?
Yes, Chair, thank you. I'm happy to share information. So in terms of the access to information response rates, as I'd indicated, we have done benchmarking across comparator organisations. So across all UK government, there's annual data produced. So the most recent data, full year data for 2024, the headline stats is that 76% of ATI responses were responded to within 20 days. So our rates are in excess of that. At all times, we try to provide information in a prompt and timely manner. We also have some data across Scottish councils, again from 2004, and the response rates vary from around 62% to 97%. Longitudinally, year on year, we see across the data, both in our own organisation and wider across other comparative councils, that there really isn't any specific patterns. Some years the response rates are higher, some rates the response rates are lower. For ourselves, it would be, I suppose, we would be seeing trends around complexities of requests that cover multiple directorate areas that require slightly longer coordination time. Requests of a commercial nature, where companies are asking under freedom of information information around, I suppose, our IT systems and costs of IT systems and procurement. So the complexities of requests coming through are significant, but we continue to work at responding to those in a timely fashion. In regards to your second question, Councillor Robbins, in relation to complaints, we're at the early stage in our complaints monitoring data. So in terms of the formal system of complaints monitoring, as per the NIPSO guidelines, I suppose it's too early to say and to identify trends. You've noted that there, compared to the first 6 months of last year, there is an increased number of complaints. You will note that most of the complaints are in the area of waste, and I suppose we had a transition at the start of the year around working arrangements and working practice in waste. There was changes of routes, there was changes of deliveries, and you'll see that there was an increased number of complaints around the start of the year. That seems to have levelled off. And evidence from that service area would indicate that the volume of those queries coming in from customers has levelled off. So that's something that I would point to and attribute to in terms of the data.
Okay, thanks for that, Jill. Would it be helpful, or would it be worth the time and effort in the access to information response rates to break that down a little bit, to sort of say, some of them have been across multiple directorates, or, give us a little bit more behind the scenes as to why, because noting from what you say, taking the Scottish model into consideration, and that we're well above sitting at least on that comparison there, but just to give us any further understanding of the response rate.
Chair, no, certainly we're happy to do that. Internally within the organisation, we scrutinise that on a monthly basis in terms of our response rates and in terms of the complexities of responses, and track and identify if there's any trends. So, yep, happy to do that.
Okay, thanks, members. The report's been proposed and seconded. Are we all agreed? Okay, thank you, members. Moving on to 6.1. Alice?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, this report is for members' information in relation to the outcome of the Fermanagh and Omagh Residents Survey 2025. So the details in terms of the methodology is set out within the report, and the main question which was sought in the survey was overall, and taking everything into consideration, how satisfied or dissatisfied are you with Fermanagh and Omagh District Council? And the results indicate 62% of residents are satisfied, with 10% expressing dissatisfaction. So the report then goes into some further detail, Chair, noting there is an increasing number of essentially don't knows or not expressing an opinion, which is I suppose skewing to an extent almost the polar end. So there's only a defined satisfaction and dissatisfaction. So in paragraph 2.3, we just note that while the level of expressed dissatisfaction is relatively low at 10%, a significant number of residents indicated they are neither satisfied nor dissatisfied, or else are decided. There is a correlation between those who've used a council service and overall satisfaction, and those who have not used a service, or at least not in the last 12 months, and they appear to be more, that appears to negatively impact on the overall satisfaction measure. There's also differences within residents' overall satisfaction across DEAs, but when we look at the statistical significance of those, only Enniskillen, which is the highest level of satisfaction, and Erne North, which is lower levels of satisfaction, are statistically significantly different from the overall district average. Now, I suppose the primary purpose of this work, Chair, is obviously in relation to our corporate plan and our monitoring. While we were undertaking this work, we did engage with other councils to see their means of citizen engagement and consultation, and that's something we'll certainly reflect on in the future as well, and bring that back to members in due course. But in the meantime, the survey results will be used to support our own business planning processes and performance improvement. So just recommending, Chair, that Council notes the findings of the survey 2025.
Okay, thanks, Alison. Seamus?
Thanks for the report. It's very interesting. I suppose one question I'd have is, I know in opinion polls that did take away the don't knows or the either ors, and then come up with a kind of an overall stat. Is that something that would be considered on the lack of this or not? And then just on a comment, looking at the Erne East DEA, which is my own, and I'm glad to see that through the forum that Erne East people make up their mind, because there's only 1% of them that says they don't know, which is great compared to 17% in Erne West or West Tyrone or Omagh, for instance. So we make up our mind and stick to it. And I'm also delighted to see 70% say they're satisfied in Erne East. So just them few comments.
And are you prepared to endorse that by proposing?
I am indeed.
Thank you, Seamus. Alice?
Chair, just in relation to the exclusion of the don't knows or uncertain, it was something that we had actually asked the company. So they said it is possible that it wasn't a scenario that they had offered in their original modelling, but our own data scientist had indicated from his perspective he thought that was something you could safely and statistically do. And then obviously if those are removed, it does make things certainly that bit more positive. I think probably what it would show as well, Chair, just in relation to the extent of the don't knows, and members will be well aware of this, I know there continues to be a level of, I suppose, uncertainty in the minds of citizens as to what central government's responsible for and what local government's responsible for. So things like roads, health, all of those matters were also referenced in some of the qualitative feedback. But we understand we could remove those figures, but it wasn't something that the survey company did as part of their work.
Okay, thanks, Alison, for the clarification. Mark?
Thank you, Chair, and I'm happy to second Seamus's proposal. Just two comments and then a question, Chair, if that's right. I mean, so looking through the report, I say here within the conclusion, it's stated that it's broadly, so the outcome of this survey is broadly in line with the outcome of the 2018 survey. But whenever I look at it, 70% of people were satisfied with the council in 2018. It is now 62%. Now, I know we can always argue about the importance of statistical relevance, but to me, an 8% drop from one survey to the next is quite significant. So it's just to put that marker down. And then I note there's also reference to, so the field work was undertaken in January, February of this year, of 2025. So that was before the Lakeland Forum decision in April, which was hugely controversially locally. And then before the household recycling booking system issue flared up in the public, and I think that was around June. So I know there's a reference to, perhaps trying to add context that this survey was being conducted in light of concerns over Lakeland Forum. In January, February, there wasn't a great deal of public awareness, but by that stage, there was no indication or no public reference or acknowledgement of what the true costs were. So I would worry, Chair, if we were to go out with another survey, that both of those issues, both the forum and both the household recycling centre booking system, will have impacted the returns again. And then it's a question. So the survey work, or the field survey work, was conducted in January, February. The survey was drawn up this time last year, November, December. Why has it taken until now? Maybe it's a unfair question, but why has it taken until now for this survey report to all come through to this committee? I mean, was the council shared a copy of the responses earlier, or has it just taken is this just how long it takes for these types of surveys to come through?
Good question, Mark. Yeah, thank you.
Chair, just working hopefully from the top in relation to the drop of 8% and in the context of the statistical or otherwise difference. Certainly, I know the explanation because it was something we obviously did look at. I think from memory in both there were plus or minus 3%. So while with 70%, it could have been 67. While with 62%, it could be 65. I accept the point in real terms, it's an 8% drop, but certainly the advice that we had received in the statistical significance is it's marginal in terms of the difference. With regard to the environment in which the casework was being undertaken and the survey work, while I appreciate what Councillor Evans has said, the decision would not have been taken. Certainly there was significant amount of negative media reporting, misinformation, and also a lot of social media speculation around the Lakeland Forum. So I certainly think there was not an accurate picture or indeed maybe one that was reflective of the decision making at hand. It also was at a time when the level of waste refuse refuse collection disruption associated with the end of the task and finish working practice was also significant. So I suppose there are no good times or bad times, but I do think there were circumstances that may have skewed. And as Councillor Evans has suggested, if it was taken later in the year, there may be other reasons why opinion would have been negative or positive. In relation to the survey findings, Chair, my recollection, I think the survey work was undertaken. I think probably the initial work would have come in and around about May time. Certainly we had gone back and asked for some further interrogation, particularly at a DEA level. So that was the reasons around delays. I know I had gone back on a couple of occasions to my own team internally, and certainly I got the final version of the information that had been requested just at the start of this month. So certainly the SMR work, which was the company work, would have been finished in I think the first half of the year, but then there was further, particularly on the qualitative, that I was seeking some clarification on, and that has all been gathered and obtained. So but in terms of did we have a final submission, in terms of the final detail, I had that from earlier this month.
Okay, thanks for the explanation. We have the report proposed by Seamus, seconded by Mark. Are we all agreed? Okay, thank you. Moving on to correspondence now and 7.1.
Thanks, Chair. The letters just from the Economy Minister, and this is in relation to the Council's correspondence. This was specifically about skill shortages in the construction sector and allied sectors. So the Minister's clarified or confirmed the reserved nature of the apprenticeship levy, but has also indicated her ongoing willingness to look at this and indeed to work with the council in terms of some of her own initiatives that she's bringing forward in this area.
Okay, thank you. Proposer and seconder. Bernard, thank you. And the seconder. Anne-Marie, thank you. All agreed? Okay.
Thanks.
Two.
Yeah, just a response, Chair, from TransLink locally in relation to the pillars at the bus depot.
Okay, thank you. Josephine?
Thank you, Chair. Well, I welcome this clarification from TransLink and propose to note the correspondence, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks, Josephine. Seconder? Bernard?
Is this to do with the bus depot?
Yeah.
No, just we have Sean Harper here and today, and just I suppose the car park, I feel that's kind of it's like an eyesore, to be honest. At the minute, there's different parts of the.
Jeff, if
Sorry,
you
am I
just
wrong?
hold that, if you hold that thought, we'll come back to you on that. So you're happy to second
Yeah,
this?
I'm happy to second,
about
yeah,
the pillars,
yeah.
in the bus stand. Okay, thanks, Bernard.
Okay, Chair.
Move into 7.3.
Yeah, 7.3, just it's NILGA's normal monthly update. So that was the November edition of NILGA's newsletter, please, Chair.
Okay. Person and seconder to note. Bernard, seeing your light is on, you propose NILGA.
Yeah.
Thank you. And Seamus, are you seconding? Thank you. Okay, moving to 7.4.
Yes, Chair. This is from the Department for Communities Minister, and it was something I'd actually mentioned at the council meeting last week. So this is in relation to standing orders, or specifically what would be known as the 41(1)B call-in provision. And there has been some media coverage of this recently, Chair. So last Friday in court, while the court was considering specific matters in relation to Belfast City Council, all councils were invited to be in attendance in relation to matters relating to standing orders more generally. So Derry City and Strabane District Council, obviously, our lead legal services officer works for that council. Our standing orders and Derry City and Strabane are the same and are both based on, as are others, on the model standing orders. So Derry and Strabane have sought to be joined with the action. And this is really to seek final legal clarity in relation to the interpretation of, we're certainly satisfied that our standing orders comply with both the legislation, legal opinion and the previous direction issued from the department. But we'll obviously keep members updated as those matters progress in court.
Okay, Anne-Marie.
Thank you, Chair. I'd propose noting this correspondence at this time. I think it's premature to do anything different to our own standing orders and just await the outcome of legal proceedings.
Okay, thanks, Anne-Marie. And have I seconder? Eddie? Okay, we all agreed. Thank you. Moving to 7.5.
Thank you, Chair. This is correspondence from Land and Property Service advising of the commencement of a consultation process on the small business rate relief options, which is something obviously we've discussed here in committee. You'll see the closing date is the 29th of January. So as such, the draft response would be brought to our January committee. So quite a tight turnaround, Chair.
Have I a proposal and seconder? Eddie, thank you. And John Feely, thank you. Okay, this is the item you're interested in, Bernard, and we'll get Alison just to present.
Yeah. Okay, so Chair, this is in relation to the council's representations just about the parking in the vicinity of the bus station, including on the pavements as well. So I think this may be the matter Councillor McGrath was referencing.
Okay. Bernard?
Thank you, Chair. No, it's just come to my attention over this past way that the bus depot, the car park, has just got to be, it's got to be in bad shape. There's parts of it closed off and has been for years. And I say with Sean Harper here with Benny and, trying to get through this car park at times, wouldn't be simple. I went for a walk there with Sean from the community house last week up to the Stoudart Centre, and it's very difficult for the likes of Sean, who's visually impaired, but I was wondering, could there be even the straight part going down to there's a straight part there, and there's young people and they seem to be speeding on it as well, and the lighting, and there's water and there's leaking. It's just in bad shape. And I just wondered, could there be something done about it, or a meeting to discuss?
Okay, thanks, Bern.
Chair, what I'd suggest maybe, because certainly in relation to the leaks and lighting area, it's work that we are actively undertaking. So John Hughes, in terms of environment and place, bringing that work forward. And we can obviously get the details circulated to members on it. In relation to some of the maybe other behaviours, if you like, that is something we've been engaging both with some of the community organisations, but also with the police as well, and trying to get maybe more responsible usage of particularly the Oasis Plaza, but the areas in and around it, including in the car park. So we're actively working on that area. The final element, I suppose, of the letter in particular, Chair, is DFI are highlighting some sections of land which would be both private and some are unadopted. In relation to any adoption issues, certainly my understanding when on the completion of the Oasis scheme is that our responsibilities have concluded. I think there may be some overlaps possibly with TransLink and other land ownership, but we can obviously refer those to the relevant landowners.
Okay, and Colette?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, Sean's situation has recently come to my attention as well, and I saw some photographs where cars have parked up on the footpath there. You would never dream of parking your car there. It's not even a footpath. You wouldn't call it that. It's a piece of ground, but there's a discrepancy over the ownership of this piece of ground. It fits 2 cars nicely, but it's by no means could you park there, or would you think of it? The ownership, I think, it's under scrutinisation at the minute as to who owns it. Is it DFA? Is it council? Or, I'd just like clarification on where we stand at the minute to the ownership of that piece of ground.
Chair, sorry, just I can confirm it's not council ownership. So it's not council ownership, but we have advised the relevant agencies of that and our understanding of where ownership is.
Sorry, Jill or Alison, sorry, do you know who owns the ground there then?
I think our expectation, Chair, is, but I think it's disputed, it's TransLink land in all likelihood.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Have I a proposer and seconder for the report? Anne-Marie? And Colette, are you willing to second?
Happy to second, Chair. Yes, thanks.
Okay, and maybe you'd pop your hand down for me then as well, Colette. Thank you. Okay. There's 3 items of other, yep.
Okay. Chair, the first item of other correspondence dated the 8th of December from Amnesty International is in relation to a call not to invest in or conduct business with companies that enable Israel's crimes. So just to advise, Chair, in relation to our own procurement policy, which the council or the committee has recommended adoption of, it would comply with the various, well, I suppose the various asks that Amnesty are including within their correspondence, and we've also had it checked from a legal perspective as well. So we will obviously respond in due course, but certainly we don't see any omissions within our policy and within the Amnesty request.
Okay, that's good to hear. Can I have a proposal and seconder to note the correspondence? Nolene?
Yes, Chair. Happy to note. Propose to
And
note.
John. Thank you, Nolene, and John, you're seconded. Thank you. All agreed? Thank you. Our second item?
Yes. Chair, the second item is from NILGA for a councillor safety event, Staying Safe in Public Office, and it's a PSNI led event. It's a webinar on Thursday, the 18th of December. We'd ask just, Chair, if people could confirm nominations to us by this Friday. It's just that we can advise NILGA so that they can issue the links for that. If that's in order, please. And then I'll just maybe move on, Chair, 'cause
Yeah.
the second is sort of linked. So on the 16th of January 2026, this is again from NILGA, but it's strengthening councillor personal safety and security. And members will be aware of a number of recent instances where certainly councillor security has been called into question. So NILGA have been doing quite a bit of work in this area, and they are having an in-person only session on the 16th of January in the Civic Centre in Craigavon. And again, nominations or registrations are required. Chair, I know this is something maybe members may wish to obviously discuss and share with their colleagues. So perhaps, I know it's a little bit later, our council meeting in January, we could just formalise nominations purely as an approved duty, but obviously members can submit details to us in advance and we'd make NILGA aware.
Yeah, that sounds sensible on both of those. Anne-Marie?
Thanks, Chair. Happy to propose noting that. I would suggest maybe to circulate those invitations to all 40 councillors so that the names can be put forward to Democratic Services. Thank
Yeah,
you.
that's fair enough. That can be done. And have I a seconder? Bernard, thank you. Okay, that concludes the other part. And Seamus, are there any other and relevant business? The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I was thinking of the new health centre being built in Lisnaskea, and I remember the management and some of the doctors being invited in. I think it was over COVID time from Lisnaskea, the Maple Group practice at the time, and we had a discussion with them about their problems and how they were struggling to get staff and different things. So I was thinking this might be a good time to ask them back in to meet the council, whether it be informally or whatever. And given that the new health centre is in the process of being built, to see is there anything the council can help with, or what their thinking and thoughts are on the staffing of the new health centre. So that's my proposal, that we invite them into either a formal or informal meeting, whatever the rest of the committee think.
Okay, thanks for that, Seamus. And have I a seconder for that proposal? Mark?
I'll not second the chair, but just in case necessary, I'll best for me to declare an interest in this discussion.
Okay, duly noted. Thanks, Mark. And Victor?
Sorry, Chair, it took me a minute to unmute there. I'll second that.
Okay, thanks, Victor. And Nolene?
Sorry, Chair, I was coming in to second it also.
Okay, that's grand. So I presume that would be an informal meeting there would be what we would be offering out. Okay, are we all agreed? Excellent. Okay, thanks, Seamus. And there was no other relevant business notified. So we're going to go now into confidential. So Anne-Marie proposing and Eddie to come out. Yep. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. While in committee, the committee considered the report on confidential staff matters, approved the recommendations and noted the other updates, Chair.
Okay, can I have a proposer and seconder? Anne-Marie, thank you. And Bernard? Okay, all agreed there. Okay, that brings us to the conclusion of our meeting at 9 o'clock or thereabouts. Can I wish everybody a very happy Christmas? Can I thank all the staff who have and officers who have worked, put together our reports and so diligently brought us the information that we require to make decisions. Can I thank members for their enthusiasm to the committee and to the scrutiny role that you provide. It is much appreciated by everyone. So enjoy your Christmas, enjoy your break, and we'll see you all ready to go in 2026. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Big Sean O'Dave.